Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the symbolism of the winged solar disk, and I'm also going to be talking about the date of 12/31/2019 on the Julian calendar. I've done many videos and documented many connections to 12/31/2019 on the Gregorian calendar, and I'm going to take a look at the Julian calendar. This would be the equivalent date of January 13th, 2020. And I'm also going to kind of introduce you to the 1388 calendar shift and the calendar synchronization. You can kind of just take a look here. I'm just going to cover this in another video, another separate video, but you can kind of take a look at it. The Gregorian calendar is a fixed 13 days apart from the Julian calendar, and then starting in December, the equivalent Hebrew date and Gregorian date, that Hebrew date would be the 88th day after the Gregorian date. And like I said, I'll cover this more, the synchronization and the shift here. But today I'm just going to be showing these two dates, January 13th, 2020, which is 12/31/2019 on the Julian calendar. I'm also going to be covering the video I just made about the Revelation 12 sign. That was June 3rd and 4th of 1769. I'm going to complete a little bit more of the connection to this 12/31/2019 Julian date, and then also show you more about the pentagrams of Venus and how it dovetails into the pentagrams of Venus from the founding of the United States. Getting this Revelation 12 sign figured out, it really fits in much more perfectly with the Revelation 12 symbolism and then the golden assassination of Abraham Lincoln that I covered about a month ago. But what I want to do here is I'm going to be taking a look at Stellarium. We're going to take a look at Saturn and Venus and the Sun in Stellarium here. And I guess before we get started here, I want to show you NASA's website here that shows they have a 6 millennium catalog of Venus transits that shows 81 transits here on their website. And what's interesting about that is that Venus sums to 81 in the ordinal cipher. So that's why they have 81 listed here, just participating in the practice of gematria. Here's a quick look at the 1769 total solar eclipse with Saros series 114. I've kind of covered this 114 before, but what's interesting about the 114 is it has this factorization of 2 times 3 times 19, the 2319. Did a whole video about the 2319. It's related to space and Project Bluebeam and the presidents. But this total solar eclipse that coincided with the transit of Venus, that was the Revelation 12 sign, Saros series 114. But what I want to concentrate on here is this celestial alignment today. the 12/31/2019 Julian, or this will be the Saturn and Sun conjunction, and the Sun will have the symbolic wings of Saturn. The two timekeepers, of course the Sun, our time is based on the Sun, the solar day, and Saturn, the god of time. But if we look at Stellarium here, on January 13th, 2020, you can see Saturn is going to go directly behind the Sun, giving it its symbolic wings. And one more thing I want to show you here, I guess, here before we get going. I want to show you the Wikipedia page for the Sun. I've gone through this a few times before. You can see here that the mean distance from Earth at light speed, the time it takes light to get from the Sun to the Earth, or so they say on this website, on Wikipedia here, is 8 minutes 19 seconds. Okay, that's the distance it takes, or the time it takes light to get from the Sun to Earth. And I want to look at these revision histories before with Wikipedia pages, but if we look at the original posting of the Sun Wikipedia page, it was on November 11th, 2001, and the time was 2019. And that can be written or expressed also as 8:19 p.m. So 2019 can be 8:19 p.m. and that also is the time they say it takes light to travel from Sun to the Earth. You can see here the X-anon, X-aonon, however you say that. That was the person who originally posted the information on the Wikipedia page. I want to take a look at the gematria of this name. And you can see it's 481 in the Jewish cipher. And that goes back to the Great Pyramid of Giza in antiquity with the capstone. The original height of the Great Pyramid was 481 feet. So they're kind of making the Sun there with the symbolic capstone. And I'll talk more about the Sun. I've covered it in a lot of other videos, but I'll cover it some more as well here in the near future. But let's go back to this alignment with Saturn and the Sun, where Saturn gives the Sun its symbolic wings. This happens on 1/13/2020 or 12/31 on the Julian calendar. And it's a pretty significant alignment because when you look at the orbital path of Saturn in the red here, it's meeting the Sun at the same time. It's at the same time it is actually crossing paths with the ecliptic. And while this isn't a rare event, it is somewhat rare. So we're going to take a look at the other events that coincide with this same alignment in the past. And I already know what dates I'm looking for, but I'm going to show you a close alignment here where it's not quite there. On July 23rd, 2005 was very close, but Saturn wasn't completely occulted by the Sun. We're going to go to the last time that it was completely behind the Sun. That was 1991. On January 17th, 1991, Saturn goes behind the Sun. and you might be familiar with that date. January 17th, 1991 was the beginning of Operation Desert Storm, and that's when Iraq fired its Scud missiles into Israel. And during that Operation Desert Storm, 88 Scud missiles were fired at Saudi Arabia and Israel. A very symbolic number, that 88. So the last time we had a complete Saturn Sun conjunction was the beginning of Operation Desert Storm. And we're going to go back and look at the previous one before that. That was July 15th, 1975. Another complete occultation of Saturn, giving the Sun its symbolic wings. And on 7/15/1975, that was the last flight of a Saturn rocket. The last time a Saturn rocket was launched was July 15th, 1975. And that was for the Apollo-Soyuz test project between the United States and Russia. And there's more to go along with this, but it's just significant that the last two Sun and Saturn complete conjunctions, I guess you could call it, were the last flight of Saturn and then the beginning of Desert Storm. Okay, we'll go back up to... Okay, we're going to go back here and take a look at this video I did a couple days ago about the pentagram, or excuse me, the Revelation 12 sign. And this Venus transit that happened right before the total solar eclipse. Remember, a Venus transit of the Sun creates a star point for the pentagrams of Venus. So this is the original chart that I had posted up on my first Pentagrams of Venus video. But if we back up the count by 1, the Revelation 12 sign began on 6/3/1769, and then the Venus transit crossed into the 4th, and then a few hours later we had the total solar eclipse. And that dovetails those 5 points. These 5 dates are the 5 points of the pentagram of Venus, and it perfectly dovetails as a complete pentagram before the founding of the United States. And that last pentagram that I showed before, this last point, the United States was founded on the 8th month, 11th day after a completed pentagram. That began with the Revelation 12 sign. And I showed you how Abraham Lincoln was assassinated 1 year, 6 months, and 18 days after the completion of a pentagram. And since our count has been modified by 1, we had 12 complete pentagrams, or 12 stars, and then 1 year, 6 months, and 18 days, and 1.618 is the golden ratio. So our Revelation 12 sign, the woman with the crown of 12 stars, after 12 completed stars, we had the Abraham Lincoln assassination. And he was shot in the head, or the crown, just like the crown of 12 stars. And this whole assassination was a Freemason ritual to Hiram Abiff, the widow's son. Hiram Abiff is basically the origin story behind Freemasonry. The master mason, Hiram Abiff, would not give his secrets away, so he was struck on the head and killed. He was struck on the crown, just like Lincoln was shot in the head or shot in the crown. And I want to show you one thing here with the Lincoln assassination. I want to look or show you the John Wilkes Booth was the assassin. And if we look at John Wilkes Booth here, he shot Lincoln on the 14th of April, and then it said he died on April 26th, 1865. And this whole ritual with the Abraham Lincoln assassination was about Revelation 12:1. So I'm going to add 121 years to John Wilkes Booth's death. I'm going to add 121 years for the Revelation 12:1. And that gets us to Saturday, April 26, 1986. And of course, that was the Chernobyl disaster. And Chernobyl translates to wormwood in the Ukrainian. And wormwood, of course, is the focus of my channel, the number coding from the book of Revelation. Wormwood, Revelation 8:11. And just a real quick recap on the number coding. The chapters and verses of the Bible were added in the 1500s. One of the editors, Francis Bacon, was a Rosicrucian, and I'm sure he had help with other Freemasons and Rosicrucians in the numbering of the Bible. Also in that same time period, the Gregorian calendar was introduced. And then the King James Bible was released on May 2nd, 1611. But the Bible, the numbers, the chapters and verses of the Bible, they've been encoded with mathematics, geometry, astronomy, time, and other symbolism. And that was all added to the text in the mid to late 1500s by the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons. And the Rosicrucians and Freemasons, most of their ancient knowledge, or their knowledge, is based on ancient Egypt. So that's why a lot of these things connect to the Great Pyramid. Here's a Rosicrucian Egyptian museum. Of course, it's located in the Rose Garden neighborhood of San Jose, California. This is a Venus symbol, the rose. And their whole museum is devoted to ancient Egypt. Okay. So I've showed this before. I just want to kind of show the representations of Saturn and Venus in the book of Revelation here. Saturn, of course, is represented by the six-pointed Star of David. The hexagon of the Star of David is associated with the hexagon on the North Pole of Saturn. And then the Venus-Earth orbit ratio form the pentagram, and the pentagram encodes the golden ratio, and that's associated with the planet Venus. So it's the interaction between Saturn and Venus that we're looking for when we're trying to decode Revelation, when we're looking at the symbolism for the alignments that are given to us. Like Revelation 12:1 is all about the woman clothed in the sun, which is a Venus transit. But within this 33:13 that I've showed you before, Revelation 6:12, the 108th verse, that encodes the pentagram. The interior angle of a pentagram is a pentagon. It's 108 degrees. And then Revelation 9:11 is the 154th verse, where Revelation is split into the golden ratio, just like the intersection of the lines of a pentagram split into the golden ratio. So there's 9:11. They even made it 9:11 because a 9 is a representation of the Fibonacci spiral, where the golden ratio was derived. 250 verses divided by 154, which is 911. That gets us our closest approximation to the golden ratio. But I just want to point out here that the 6-pointed star and the 5-pointed star and the 3313 are all related to Saturn and Venus, and then this 24th star number. And there is a place, I'll let you kind of figure out where it is, where the 6-pointed star and the 5-pointed star are connected or combined. And in the same place that those two types of stars can be found, you'll also find a incomplete and a complete pyramid. I'll let you find that and figure that out. I'm going to go back here to this first pentagram. I'm going to show you the time period it takes to make one pentagram of Venus, to complete one pentagram. So we had our Revelation 12 sign was on June 4th, 1769. Then the completed pentagram was on October 24th, 1775. Our Venus transit started on 6/3. But to complete a pentagram, it's 2,334 days from start to finish on a Venus pentagram point or star. And I've showed you guys this before, and I've showed you the math before also, but if we take 612 plus 811 plus 911, it's also 2,334. And that number is from the base of the pyramid, 230.34 meters. I've showed you guys this before. I'm going to show you the 477, the time reference to the 3313 here. 477 minutes is 33.13% of a day. 3313, the 24th star number. So if we look at our alignment here that occurred on 6/4, the total solar eclipse, on June 4th, 1769, we're going to add 13,008 weeks. 13.8 is the orbital ratio between Venus and the Earth. And then we're going to add 477 days, which is our time representation of the 3313. We're going to add 13,008 weeks. That gets us to September 23rd, 2018. And then we're going to add the 477 days for our 3313 time reference, and that gets us to January 13th, 2020. And we're going to look at the total amount of time here. It's 13,076 weeks and 1 day. So this is during the 13,077th week. I did a whole video on the 1377. I'll just show you again here. 1377 is the ordinal gematria value of Revelation 8:11, 1377. And if we add the 11, like you would see it in a Bible, if we add the 11 to that, it becomes 1388. Kind of interesting that we have the 1377, 1378, or 1388 encoded if we add in the verse numbering as well. So the Revelation 12 sign, June 4, 1769, plus 13,008 weeks, plus 477 days. And that just happens to come out to be the 13,077th week after this date as well. And that's our symbolic sun with the wings of Saturn. Let's take a look at a few more rituals here with that date in relation to Revelation. There are 404 total verses in Revelation. So another way to encode this 404, if you look at the 404th prime, it's 2,777. And 2 times 7 times 7 times 7 is 686. And I've shown this connection before. But here's our connection to the sun here. The largest solar flare ever recorded was on April 2nd, 2001. And if we go to January 13th, 2020, it's 6,860 days, a 686, right? 4-2. That goes back to our Malachi 4:2, the sun of righteousness. The sun with wings. You can even see here the time here is 2206 or a 226. 226, that's another way to encode the 3313. The next one here is Chicago O'Hare. The Chicago O'Hare Airport UFO sighting was on November 7th, 2006. And if we go to 12/31 on the Gregorian calendar, that's 686 weeks. There's our 686 for the UFO sighting in Chicago at the airport. 12/31 on the Gregorian calendar. And then the largest solar flare to January 13th, 2020, which is 12/31 on the Julian calendar. another 686. And the last one here that I'm going to show you, the Eiffel Tower, the most famous view of the Eiffel Tower is from the Champ de Mars, which is named after the god of war. The Eiffel Tower opened on March 31st, 1889. If we go to our 1/13/2020 date, that's 13,088% of a common year. And the Eiffel Tower itself is the iota, the Greek letters, the iota, the alpha, and the omega stacked on top of each other. And in the Greek isopsephy, the iota, alpha, and omega sum to 811. And that stands for all goeth out, all returneth within, there shall be an end of. Okay guys, I'm going to do more on this calendar, explain it a lot better. You can take a look at it here. But I'm going to be showing the same numbers for the same events, or different events, but the same numbers that connect to the same dates on each calendar. 1223 on the Gregorian, 1223 Julian, 1223 Hebrew. There's several dates here that are all synced up with the same numbers, different events but same numbers, same related events with the same numbers. Okay guys, thanks for watching.